Greetings, Guardians. My name is Bife here. So, little notes before we start. This is a video without a script, so I am going to be doing a lot more umming and ahhing than usual. It's also because it's my first impressions of something, and I want to make sure that I get this out in a somewhat orderly time. Lots of my videos lately have been, well, late in the day compared to when I usually upload them. This one will be too, so yeah, there's only a certain amount I can do about that, but regardless, I want to try and get this out somewhat quickly. The other thing to note, I'm going to be discussing spoilers for the first few hours worth of seasonal story, the first week's worth of seasonal story content in the Echoes episode. So if you don't want to be spoiled for that, just go ahead and turn off now. This is your warning. And I guess one last thing, the spoiler warnings across the channel are dropping within the next day-ish. If you are one of those people who in particular wants to avoid raid spoilers, turn off until you've completed the raid. If you're someone who wants no spoilers whatsoever for the final shape, yeah, your time is quickly elapsing. So with that being in mind, yeah, let's jump in. With Echoes, there was a really interesting note that had to be made, which was, well, this is coming directly hot off the heels of the Witness being defeated, and so there was going to be a very notable tone shift from Final Shape, and I think that that's appropriate to describe it as. I think there was also going to be the big question of how does this compare to the seasonal story model, and so far, lots of the same, but also a few nice little surprises here and there. The first thing that immediately comes to mind is the fact that they were willing to lay on the cutscenes immediately. And, well, even after just the first mission, I think there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of moments where Failsafe is explaining stuff, but I think it's also partly there because it's the opening of a season with regards to the mechanics being explained, or the basic premise being explained. There is a very notable villain for this season. This episode, I should say. And it's been shown all over the trailers and the covers. We haven't seen anything to do with them so far, except for the logo that is around all of the Vex, which someone in my previous video, a commenter, pointed out, it's very similar to the Ishtar Collective logo, and having seen it for myself, yeah, it is, which only reinforces the idea that this could be a copy of Mayas and Daresh even further. But we've seen nothing of it so far. Even venturing through all of the available questing, as best I know, in the season so far, I haven't seen anything to do with our antagonist, and it's very clear that we've received a moment where we're locked out of the next part of the chapter to the story. That's kind of where the seasonal model is being followed again. If you didn't like the bit in the seasons where story was fed to you progressively over weeks, and if you wanted to just play it all in one big dump, yeah, that's not looking like it's changed a whole bunch. So maybe this is not for you still. That being said, there were a few pleasant surprises, and I think one of them is actually the fact that I just stumbled across a secret mission out in the open immediately. That's not a crazy narrative departure, but it was on the way to stuff that pushed the narrative forward. And I tell you, for about an hour I was really, really excited. Like, more excited than I've been on any other seasonal launch except for maybe Arrivals. Because while Arrivals had all of this mystery straight up in your face, now we have a secret mission in front of us, and we had to do a bunch of decoding stuff to get there, and it was following these strange echoes, and we had weird stuff going on with our screens. It was neat, and when we actually found it, we didn't succeed the first time on this mission. It's a time trial type thing. Now, it has to be said, there is a later quest step to just find this mission, which I bypassed by doing it early apparently, but regardless, it still is really cool to just sort of organically discover that, and the process of discovering it being completely unprompted, at least in my experience, made it really awesome to just discover all on my own. So yeah, that was a really pleasant surprise all by itself. The other thing that I think is pleasant to note about this is the fact that for the first time in ages, the Vex might potentially have a really interesting story, because there are interesting lore possibilities being put forward. It all comes down to a line that Failsafe has stated, which is basically this idea that the Vex, at current, seem to be split in two. There are what are known as the Choral Vex now, and there are also the Vex, as they typically are. The Choral Vex are very different from the basis of their story side of things. They fight in an identical fashion, but from everything else, it's really changing things up. You see, the Vex are not the robots that you fight. The Vex are the tiny radiolarian structures within them, the Vex milk, the Vex mind fluid. And within that mind fluid, according to Failsafe, within every radiolaria, there is a war going on right now. There are these two factions of Vex, the typical ones led by the Axis minds, and these other Vex, led in a chorus, a group that seems to be communicating with individual radiolarian structures, sending comms back and forth as opposed to simply receiving their messages from the Axis minds above. And that is fascinating. Not only because it means we could potentially have a Vex civil war, but also because it now means that the Vex are changing. And the idea of the Vex changing is weird simply based on the fact that the Vex, even just as a concept, don't really change. They change the universe to suit themselves. And now they are changing themselves to suit the universe. That's really kind of weird based on the fact that this is entirely what the Vex do. Their entire MO has been to convert the universe into more Vex, and suddenly they're not doing that. If they are changing things, it's to the tune of someone else, and we're not sure who that is, but I mean, inevitably it will be the villain that we've seen displayed in all of the trailers. We still don't know what their motivation is, but the changes happening to Nessus are pretty dramatic. We're also helping with those changes, as it turns out, because we just, happened to bring a massive Cabal Quake Hammer with us that we're integrating with a bunch of Vex nonsense. Just because. Guardians get their hands on tech, and I swear, it's a bad story every single time. Regardless, the Vex are doing a little bit of this by themselves. We're causing some of the quakes with our own hammers as we basically use it to unearth Vex radiolarian structures, but they're also doing some of it themselves as they reshape Nessus according to the new whims of whatever being is at the heart of the chorus. I don't know who that is, but again, the likelihood is that it's Maya Sundaresh, and I also don't know why she's reshaping things here, if it is Maya. But the fact that this is even happening at all leads to a very fascinating possible story. I think Saint 14 and Osiris being involved here makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more from, say, Mithrax or Ido, or anyone else who is closely involved with any previous projects involving the Vex. Wow, I can't believe I did that tongue twister first time. Anyway, the point is this, the character selection here makes a lot of sense. I think that the expansion of potential things that we've seen in the trailers as the season goes on is also going to make a lot more sense too. Within the secret mission, I did also want to pick up on another thing which was interesting. The Vex appear to be archiving human culture, specifically data from the Golden Age, and we don't quite know why yet. But it's really interesting to see things like Jollof Rice and Port being mentioned. And the reason why is because if you've played Veil Containment Logs and you remember, well, one of the meals that Chioma Essie was preparing for Maya Sundaresh for their anniversary was one of their favorites, and if I'm not mistaken, it involved Jollof Rice and one of their favorite brands of port. Yeah, not kidding. This just hints more and more to the idea that it's Maya Sundaresh. So, yeah, we have interesting ties here. We don't know why the Vex are synthesizing human culture and data. We don't know if this is Maya trying to do something weird and specific and esoteric that applies only to her, but regardless, the entire central plot point of her potentially taking over the Vex, or at very least causing a schism within the Vex, is a hugely important note, because it means the Vex might finally have an interesting story and an interesting villain. And that's been the problem that's plagued the Vex for a very long time. The Vex as a group are problematic to tell a story about because they are so alien, and the threat that they pose is so utterly enormous against us that it's hard to write about. To give you all an idea, this is a bit like if the Matrix expanded to, instead of just being the human population on Earth, being the whole of the universe. The Vex are terrifying. Vex simulations are capable of remarkable degrees of accuracy unless Guardians are involved, in which case they need to do an enormous amount of guesswork. And when it comes down to Vex simulations, if you're caught within one, you are effectively left at the whims of the Vex. You could play out the same scenario hundreds of thousands of times, each of them with a specific mutation or permutation to that particular sequence of events within the simulation. It could be that they're just doing it to endlessly torture you to figure out how you work and how you function. And when all of that is said and done, even if you are just a simulated copy of yourself and you're not real, your pain is very real. And within your flesh in that simulation, more copies of the Vex will be nested because they will simulate themselves within you, and then those simulated copies of the Vex will have more simulations of you, and it will be an endless cascading loop of pain and suffering and simulation. I'm not kidding when I sit there and say that it's really hard to describe the kind of hell the Vex would put you through, and the only reason we're able to avoid this and treat it in not such a serious manner is because we are paracausal. As beings of light and dark, the Vex can't easily simulate us, and so we kind of get a free pass from all of this. Thank goodness Panoptes was destroyed, right? But apparently, this is something where Guardians, at least Saint in the trailer, is shown to not necessarily be free from the influence of the Vex. He is momentarily inducted into the chorus. And we don't know if that's because he's an Exo, we don't know if it's because he's been closely linked to the Vex before, we just don't know, but it's something we should be aware of. This has the potential to be an interesting story, Bungie just needs to land it, and I think a lot of it rests upon the villain. Assuming it is Maya Sundaresh, I really hope that there is an interesting motivation behind all of this. The Echo provides us with our obvious MacGuffin, which I'm not going to call a MacGuffin unlike the Radial Mast or the Veil, because we actually understand what it is, for starters. But assuming the Echo has fallen into Maya Sundaresh's possession, we have the potential for a terrifying story, if her ambitions are to be realized. The reason being is because we've seen Maya go a little bit mad with power, and we have no clue where that leads, but her controlling the whole of the Vex, that can't be good. I'd love to see if this is just restricted to the Vex on Nessus, or if there is a larger force going on here and changing everything. Inevitably also, it seems like we'll see more changes as the season goes on. More of Nessus will be transformed, and more of the Vex network will start to rise to its surface. But for the moment, we just have to wait. So far, my first impressions, it's a lot more of the same, but there is a somewhat positive note to it, and I do hope that there is the potential for an interesting story. I think I'd also state that anything following a big expansion is going to be smaller. This is what we've seen for years, and that's because the big expansion just consumes all of the team's resources and time and budget. So, I mean, you know, take a look at the Season of the Risen and compare it to, say, the Season of the Haunted or Season of the Seraph in the Witch Queen year. One of those is much smaller than the others. Haunted and Seraph are big compared to Risen, which only lasted for about 4 weeks. This, as an episode, carries a lot more weight to it. There are 3 acts. We still don't know how that's going to pan out. There is a longer story potentially. We still don't know how that will pan out. And there are more parts and pieces unfolding as we go. I'm very interested to see what this new narrative format will bring us, but also, some of it is very much familiar territory for both the good and the bad that it brings. And again, let's just hope this makes the Vex a potentially interesting faction for the first time in God knows how long. Anyway, that's my really quick first impressions. I'll get more videos to you. I'm trying to get stuff done as quickly as I can, but I won't lie, there's just a lot, and trying to figure out what I need to do first is kind of daunting. I think I'm going to try and finish up a raid of Salvation's Edge, because I've still not done it. We stopped at contests. And yeah, if I can go ahead and get that clear, I'll be able to give you all my first impressions of the raid too. After all that's said and done, I can go through some of the raid lore. For those of you who don't want raid spoilers, momentary warning for you all to turn off. I'll just discuss something briefly here while I've got everybody at the end of the video. Yes, I have heard the dialogue between Encounters 2 and 3. I will be talking about it at some point soon. It is literally next to the top of my list of priorities to talk about when it comes to all of that stuff. In my list, it's that, it's the Kavoshtav quest, it's a whole bunch of other things, but those are near the top. And yes, I've also read the ship entitled The First Knife, and I know what the lore implications are for that and how they link in. So yeah, we will talk about that. Anyway, that's all from me for now. Quick video is over and done with. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and leave a like and leave your own thoughts down below in the comments section. And if you want more Destiny content, more scripted than just off the cuff like this, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.